o'clock p.m. This is the Bluff Town Council regular meeting. It is July 11th, 2023. Roll call.
Linda Sosa.
Jim Sayers.
Luanne Hook.
Brant Murray.
Ann Leppanen. And Erin Nelson will not be joining us as she's still on vacation. The first thing is the approval of the Bluff Town Council regular meeting minutes of June 20th, 2023. Has everyone read them? Are there any changes or modifications?
I have one change, and that is just what you just mentioned is the roll call. Erin is just listed as absent, and I think it should be labeled as an excused absence instead of just missing.
Mayor, I was not at that meeting, so I'm going to abstain.
On the 20th?
I missed the 20th, I think. I was at the special meeting.
Right.
Motion to approve those with the revisions.
Second. Sorry. Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
I abstained.
So 4 ayes, 1 abstention. I think technically we don't have to excuse Erin because she's an employee as opposed to a council member. But, you know, the change stays. That's fine, and that's fine. So moving to Town Council special meeting minutes from June 23rd, 2023. And I think we're getting a pretty strong feedback. Let's see if, okay, sounds a little better. So these, did everybody receive these, and are there any changes, additions?
Well,
Motion to
it
approve.
depends on how you want to do that one, but it lists Erin as being there. That was our quick little bid processing meeting, I believe, and it lists her as there, and she actually wasn't there on that one, but also excused.
I'll second Jim.
Okay, so just a comment that the roll call, because it lists all of us, just is a reminder for me to be able to make sure that everybody is accounted for. And again, I don't think that Erin Nelson, a town manager, is necessarily excused or unexcused. That's a personnel kind of piece, but it's fine. But it doesn't mean that she was there just because it's listed. It's a reminder for me to catch everybody. All in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, 5 ayes. Then public comment. There will be a 3-minute time limit for each person wishing to comment. If you exceed that 3-minute time limit without permission, the meeting controller will mute you. I wanted to put into place this week kind of the new rules that we talked about, the new ways to address public comment. But until our manager gets back, I can't make some of the changes. So we will just go as usual. If there's any public comment, let us know. Jim, you'll be responsible for keeping me posted since I usually miss the hands. Is there anyone that would like to make a public comment? I'll wait another few seconds here. All right, hearing and seeing no hands. It's 6:04, and we'll close off public comment and move to the first item of unfinished business, discussion and vote on the Clean Energy's potential grant and the need for a stronger noxious weed ordinance. Gesundheit. Lou, that one's yours.
Yeah, so we did have the interview again yesterday, a second interview to see if we would, it's Canyon Country Discovery Center, whether or not they would be the bid winners for that grant from the clean energy folks. Killian Bailey is the new person in charge, so he and I both interviewed with them. Their main concern was centered around having support from the council and support from the community to get those weeds under control, the noxious weeds. And so the whole thing is around that giant cane that we've already worked on, as you know. And so I explained to him that we were all in favor of making that and that the state already has a law mandating that we do so. So today I sent out to you all sort of a summary of that law that says that we need to have something and we need to keep doing this. So these sorts of activities are exactly what we need to do. And so I encouraged them in this interview. I said, if you have a group of people like this, you're teaching the native, it's almost all indigenous group that gets hired. When they're in the neighborhood and they're taking care of somebody's property, it's a good thing because it shows that, hey, you know, we're all in this, we're helping. If you would like to help, if you've got a patch, we're right here, we're ready to go. And plus the education. And then they will also do some mapping of whatever's remaining and whatever they get done if they give us the grant to do it. And they said it'd be like 4 people for 4 or 5 days. So it may still not get rid of everything. The Utah put in a policy in 1971. It's required on public and private lands that towns enforce it. Counties are really under the gun because counties are typically where you have the wide open roadways and fields and open areas. We have a lot of that ourselves, but it's also required of a town to do that. So I think that's all. We don't have any ordinance that we've got written up or anything, but we may need to do that if we have some uncooperative people. We may need to go that next step at some point. But right now, we're just waiting to see if we get that grant and can help some more people in town.
So we actually passed a resolution. It's Resolution 56. And it was to adopt a noxious weed duty to control policy. So it's pretty easy to convert this into an ordinance and run it by Chris. So
Okay.
I can do that. What we're really lacking is kind of the enforcement penalty piece, which is pretty easy to do. If, generally speaking, how it works is if somebody doesn't want to remove it or refuses to remove it, we can send a letter, tell them that this is the law, they need to remove it. If they fail to remove it, we give them notice that we will have it removed. We have it removed, we pay the bill, and then we send them the bill. When they don't pay the bill, then it can attach to things like your property, so that when you sell the property, it's a lien. So it's a pretty straightforward enforcement piece. And I think that it's really been great, Lou, with you working with the AmeriCorps folks, because it's gotten everyone used to the fact that we're looking at this seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And that certainly goes to other noxious weeds, of which bowheads and those things are included.
Right. And just to add on to that, yeah, that resolution we did in 2021, November of 2021. And the state law, Park City has a great ordinance, and that's part of what I sent you. But if you look at Park City, they really have it good on a lot of their ordinances. They've been a good resource for all the way down the line. But this giant cane is in the class 1. State has put it in as class 1, and so is the county, following suit, led by the state, enforcing that. So that means it's early detection, rapid response, and you basically are supposed to eradicate it. It's not like some of the goat heads and the knapweed and stuff that we kind of keep controlled and keep it under control. It is eradicate it. Get every last one of them out of your town.
Yeah.
If we need a vote to support going after the grant, I'll do that. It sounds like the resolution regarding the noxious weeds is already in place.
I'll
Well,
second that.
The grant we already approved to go with them a few months ago. Our last meeting was like in April or something. So that one's already taken care of. It's just whether we move forward to an ordinance and get an ordinance making this a little more solid. And the state requires that we do. So that's we need to do that. We need to turn that one into an ordinance, but
I'll get a draft on the agenda in the next meeting or two for everybody to look at.
so one of the things that the state says is that the towns are required to notify the people that have a noxious weed growing in their yard or on their property. So that would be the first step, is we would educate. And if this group comes in, that will be their first thing. We've got, identify the spots, and then they could contact, the town can contact first and say, we've got this group coming in, sign up if you want help. You need to get rid of it one way or the other. And that's the first step.
Right.
I withdraw the motion.
All right, so we'll go ahead and I'll get that worked on and get it back on the agenda in a week or two. All right, then, if there's nothing else on that, number 2 is the update on the San Juan County Local Emergency Planning Committee meeting. This is held quarterly, I think, and it was June 21st. Actually, it's held monthly. The only thing of real importance for people to know is that we are in FEMA Region 9, and they will start doing a cleanup of the uranium tailings and mess on the Navajo Nation. And when they do that, they're going to transport the toxins all on 191 up somewhere by Monticello and dispose of them. So this came as a little surprise to San Juan County. They hadn't been told that yet. And so Tammy Gallegos is working on the training that we'll have to provide for volunteer fire department and other emergency responders, because they'll be moving a fair amount of material on it sounds like a regular basis for a time period. We don't know when that's going to start, but it's radioactive tailings. So it's really important to kind of stick with this and figure out with the county how this is going to work. And like I said, Tammy Gallegos, I believe, is working on a plan with FEMA to make sure we've got training.
This isolation spot is up by Monticello, excuse me.
They didn't identify exactly where, but it's north of Monticello, slightly north is what they said.
And you don't have the location that they're taking it from. Is it as far away as Monument Valley, or do we know that?
The entire Navajo Nation. So whatever's in Region 9. I'm just looking. Yeah, they'll do some radiation response training in the county. So I imagine the fire department and EMS will get trained on that.
I'm concerned about dust-borne particles. It'd be nice to find out what kind of truck they're going to transport in, if that's doable. Hauling 170 miles through 4 towns maybe is not the best idea, but we'll see.
Well, I go to the LAPC meetings regularly, so I'm sure we'll be getting updates from Tammy on this.
All righty, thank you.
And just for, I think, the minutes and stuff, could you tell me, I can't think what the LAPC stands for.
Okay, I said it at the beginning.
Sorry.
That's okay. It's the San Juan County Local Emergency Planning Committee.
Okay. Not necessarily the radiation sector, just in general.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. All right, then moving to number 3, discussion and vote on the food and craft vendor applications for the solar eclipse. Those are on our website. We put them up. Okay, so the committee that's working on human needs is comprised of Jen Davila, myself, and Carrie Harris. And so we have a very short application for both food vendors and craft vendors, but we wanted to get it up on the website despite not having approved it by council so that we can start reaching out to vendors. We've had people contact us. So if you'd like to see changes to this, let me know and we'll do that, and then we can vote on it next week, or if these applications look okay to everybody, we can vote on it tonight.
I make a motion that we approve this as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? Then
It
all,
looks good. It's easy to find on the website and it looks good. It's basic.
yeah, we really wanted to stress the no water, no electricity piece so that we don't get people thinking we're going to be able to just set up. Okay, I'm getting another echo.
Yeah, it's coming from Brant.
I think yep, he just muted himself.
So I don't see on here where it says that there's no electricity.
It's not on the actual application. It's on what you clicked on to look at the application.
Okay.
There's an information page, and it says, I think it's in bold letters, no water, no electricity.
Yep. No power, no water. Okay. Yep.
All right, then, if there's no recommended changes, all in favor say aye. Aye.
Right.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, it's unanimous. And as we go through this, it could be that we have to fine tune something, but at least this gets us moving on the approval. The number 4, update on the International Dark Sky Designation application. Sarah Barak, Erin Nelson met with the woman from the International Dark Sky application process that we're assigned to. I was supposed to be on it, but the meeting I was in beforehand ran over and I wasn't on it, so I wasn't firsthand involved, but they're making, they've gone through with her what we need to have in terms of the ordinance, which looks good. There might be one little tweak to our current ordinance, but it's not a necessary tweak. And I don't recall what they said it was, but it's not anything that would bump us out of the dark sky application. It's just a little change in language. So we're in under the current guidelines, which are good because in the next year they'll be changing them and they'll be stronger on the requirements. Then Sarah and Erin talked with her about the number of events that we already have, the dark sky viewing, the star parties that the Beak has, talked about the involvement of the community and the different pieces, like with Lou when she did the meter readings, kind of laying out those plans. We're really much closer than people envisioned to being able to put wrap up an application. It's not going to be tomorrow, but it's not the 3 to 5 years that it typically takes, in part because we have so many of those pieces. The one thing that we will need to work on is going to different organizations or facets of the community and getting letters of support. And so that would be business owners of Bluff, the Fort, really anything that's a partnership that we have. Probably San Juan County to see if they would support it. But
Rocky Mountain Power.
yeah, I've got a list of potentials, and I thought in August, when we get a little closer to the eclipse, when we do the work session related to the eclipse and the things we need to do that last 2 months, that we can add this as a part of it to say who's going to reach out and do certain tasks. But it's coming along, and that the ordinance is really the biggest piece that the communities struggle with. The other thing that came out of the meeting was when Lou did the readings, and then when Sarah and Jen, I think it was, did them, we can pare that down to like 5 or 6 locations. So rather than doing like 10 or 12 locations every 6 months, it can be pared back. So those are things that we'll need to work on. But Sarah and Erin had a good conversation, and we're moving forward. So I'll get that on a work session when we do the solar eclipse work session, which we'll have to do in August to get us all on the same page.
And we also all met with those two to get it kind of firsthand from them, you and I and Sarah and Erin.
Right.
So that was also good. And
And Luanne had a lot of good ideas. I think that between the three of them, they'll have this one pretty covered in getting that application moving and in before we all retire, I hope. All right. Anything else on that, Lou?
no, I think that covers it. We just, yep.
All right, then moving to number 5 under new business, the annual transient room capacity report. Lou, do you want to cover that one?
Yeah, so it's due again July 31st. Every year, the state, before you can put in a resort tax on your community, which taxes, adds another additional income for the town. Before you can do that, you have to show that you're a resort. And in order to be a resort, you do a capacity, a number of beds, and number of places that campers can camp, number of short-term rentals, how many bedrooms are in those. So they get a sense of how many people are in your town compared to how many residents there are. You have to have at least 66% capacity in order to do a resort tax. We put that on really early on when we first incorporated, so we could get a base of income for the town. And we've passed every year. You need 66%, and we're over 300%. We can hold 300% of the number of our residents. So we have no worry about not meeting that, but every year you fill out a form. And so I'm trying to pass that back into the administrative sector so that it, just gets in the file of anyway, I've got to get all those numbers from, how many there are now and whatnot. So anyway, I think that's it on it.
We're a solid resort town is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, it's definitely no danger of not being able to collect that tax, but that's what they check every single year as towns grow and change.
Well, thanks for working on that. And so I know that Erin is tracking a lot of our deadlines so that when whoever has been responsible for that administrative task moves out, then it's being covered by the town management piece. So thanks.
Yeah, and that's good because, some of the things I don't necessarily have access to on numbers and whatnot. So it's good to have somebody that's in the office can get that. So when she's back, I will. That's been our plan. I'll sit down with her before it's not due till the 31st.
I wonder if we're like the highest ranked resort town in Utah from the number. And it's interesting because the reason I say that is it could have some bearing on this Sitla deal. If we're like the super resort. Anyway, I'll just throw that out there.
That's a good question.
The tax guy would know that.
Let's find out.
All right, then moving to number 6, planning and zoning meeting of June 28th, 2023. Lou, that's also for you.
Okay, so on the 28th, they had a separately scheduled meeting because of the first one being missed. They added in an extra one. They discussed the RV ordinance some more, because that's one that they're working on, is how do we manage RVs in town, parked on lots, parked on the streets, so on. And then they also worked on the site plan application form. They didn't work on it. They actually said it was to the attorney. And when it comes back, they just wanted to make sure that the site plan application was good and solid and had all the information that they needed. There was a request from this dark sky committee to go to planning and zoning and see where they were at as far as follow-up. So you get a land use clearance from planning and zoning to build your house or your motel or whatever you're building. You get a land use clearance, but then it's turned over to San Juan County. San Juan County then does the building inspection. So there's not a follow-up point where they say that, hey, you put in all these lights, but actually you said you were going to put these in, but what did you actually put in? So before a certificate of occupancy is given, they want to coordinate with the building inspector in San Juan County to say, hey, before you give that certificate of occupancy, we want to make sure that it's following the dark sky. That was one of the requests from the dark sky people that we have a follow-up on the new builds to make sure that the new things are going in appropriately. So they were gonna discuss that and ask the attorney, I believe, how that worked. Not the attorney, they were gonna ask the building inspector and see if there was a way to tap on to that follow-up on their end. Let's see, and then on today, there was a work session. It was all aviation. It was all on the aviation ordinance. They had a work session in person at the community center. And they're just working through that, trying to get a recommendation to the town council to be able to vote on aviation ordinance. So they talked about all of the variable things that you can fly, from balloons, kites, the RC planes, remote control planes, balloons, helicopters, planes. Can you land them in residential? Can you build your own little airstrip? Can you put them in commercial areas? Can you have it in your residence if you're in a commercial area? You know, there's a lot of little things that they're working through. So that was their work session today, and their next meeting is the 19th. So that was it. Are there questions?
Thank you, Lou.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions for Lou? Okay, then moving to number 7, support by the town for Utah Dene Bakea's Bears Ears Summer Gathering. I sent to everybody the email from Sam Reeves, who is the intern for UDB, and that email was sent because Woody Lee, the executive director, had a letter drafted that was sent to us about Utah Dene Bakea's Bears Ears Summer Gathering, which is going to be Friday, July 21st to Sunday, July 23rd. And the request is to whether the town would support UDB in this gathering. And while it doesn't say, let me just skim through the letter. It's been a few weeks since I've read it. They would appreciate monetary or in-kind donations along with volunteer work. If we have any organizational banners, to send those. And then if we have donations, they will be announcing the donations at the gathering. So the question is what's everybody's thinking about supporting Bears Ears Summer Gathering, and in what way, if we are?
Mayor,
Brant?
I think we should have a resolution supporting this and have it annually. It's a wonderful, wonderful event. It's held up kind of on the other side of Bears Ears, on the northwest side of Bears Ears. And we could certainly provide some conduit if there's some civic organizations or some donations. We could get those to those guys too. I don't see the town making a monetary donation this year, but if it's something that we want to consider in the future, I think that's fine. That's fine.
So you're suggesting a resolution supporting the Bears Ears Gathering?
Yes, ma'am, I am.
Is that a motion?
Yes, ma'am.
I'll second.
Any discussion on having a resolution that supports UDB in this process? Then all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Then it's unanimous. I'll work with getting something put together for next week. What is everyone's thought about any kind of monetary contribution or volunteer, or should we just let the community decide?
Can we put that up on our website just as a link for this? Would that be appropriate?
We can do whatever people agree to, so.
That's my idea.
I'm wondering if we could do just a nominal monetary contribution, since these are partners of ours in the building.
What are you thinking?
Well, I don't know. That's up to you guys.
We can think about that. Just we got a little time. Is it 2 weeks away? Or is it 10 days away?
Our next meeting is the 18th, and so it's the 21st, so we could think about it and then everybody come back with their ideas,
For next week?
right?
Yeah,
And what we could
it
do,
would be symbolic, but it would have to be substantial enough to be meaningful. I mean, it wouldn't be.
Like $200 or something? Is that what you're thinking, Jim? Or
What are you saying?
I say $250, or is that kind of number you're
Well, that
thinking?
would be sort of a minimum, I think. Yeah.
All right, so let's think about it for next week, man.
I think that would be a good amount because it's a show of support. The resolution shows support, but we're not using
I'm okay with it.
tax money for
That
their gathering.
That's fine. If we want to,
Right.
we could go ahead and say we'll do it now and then not bring it up. If there's sentiment on this board for that contribution, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I think Luann's got a point. It's tax money, and we can't really be extravagant about anything, but I think that symbolism would be healthy.
another way to do it is if the individual council members wanted to make a donation in their own name,
Yeah.
and not use tax money. I mean,
That's-
that would be another way to do it. I'm certainly willing to throw in some money.
So am I.
Me too. Me too.
Let's talk about it next week and make a final decision. How about something like that?
That sounds good.
All right.
Sounds good.
Now I have to remember to get that on the list. Okay. Then number 8, Erin Nelson had asked me to put this on, discussion and vote on termination of NetForce and their contract. So by way of background, what I can say is that NetForce has been less than stellar with their services. And
Sorry, excuse me.
we have a
I'll mute myself.
That's okay. And it really came to head with the grammar requests that we've been getting because despite Erin having spent a fair amount of time when she first was hired working with NetForce to get all the corrective actions taken and make sure we had the plan in place that we were actually paying for, which was not the case, they had assured her they could do what's called an e-search. So when somebody makes a request for our records, that rather than having to turn over your individual computer for Erin to do a manual search, they would be able to just go in and run the program. Well, after 3 attempts, the first 2 of which failed, the third one, they came back and said, well, part of the problem is, excuse me, the plan that you have doesn't cover e-searches. Well, if there's anything that Erin is, it's detailed. And so Erin had laid out for us everything they could do, and that was a big component. So she has asked us to consider, and it will have it soon for next meeting because I'd like her to be able to answer questions, but she has asked us to terminate that contract. It's a 90-day termination notice, which would allow her sufficient time if we did it in October, November, December. Then we would start up with probably the state of Utah services that we turned down because they don't come down and do as much remote stuff, but it doesn't matter because NetForce isn't doing that either. So she'd probably be looking at asking us to approve the state service. That would allow us to bring, and this is my thinking, I haven't talked with Erin about it. If we think about giving notice in October, November, December, when we bring on the 2 new council members in January, we'll all be on the same learning curve with the new system. Rather than getting us up and running in November with 2 of you leaving and then getting 2 new people in January and having to get them up and running. So that's what she's going to be asking for. But again, I don't have all the detail that she had in terms of the plan. So I don't want us to vote. It's just more a matter of getting your ducks in a row as to questions you have. Or if you want to stick with NetForce or propose another server than the state. But that's kind of where she's at.
Good deal.
Yeah, we can wait on that for a short time. I'm generally in favor of the idea, but right now we're in the middle. Are we still in the middle of some grammar requests?
We have some, but Linda and I are wrapping those up, and they're not complex.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, that's
this isn't. These three are fairly straightforward and easy. They don't require the depth that the other ones have. But
And this would just entail the cessation of all the payments, the monthly payments, the sort of lease thing that we do with them, or whatever it's called.
correct,
That's
because
our plan.
Yeah, we own all of our equipment, so
Yeah.
we're not leasing equipment from them. It's just
Right.
waving goodbye and good luck to NetForce. So I'll get it on the agenda for next week so Erin can answer questions and kind of refresh our memory as to what the other plan looked like.
Thank you.
Well, thank Erin. I think it was her frustration sense that just pushed us over. And it's good because I think that we were all on the fence when we approved sticking with them, and this kind of answered the question. The number 9 is the discussion and vote on fire restrictions. I wasn't quite sure where Jim was going other than it's hot, dry, and windy. So I just put it out as discuss and vote. It doesn't mean I'm expecting that we're voting or that that's what Jim wanted, but I wanted to get some discussion going, which then generated some emails between the Bluff Volunteer Fire Department chief, the assistant chief, and myself. So let me see if I can find that. The one where Chief Lott explained kind of the detail here. Right now, there are no hard and fast fire restrictions, and I had gone on San Juan County's website to see if there were any restrictions, but there's a distinction between restrictions and a closed fire season, which means closed fire season is people who want to burn have to get a permit and then have local fire department inspect the site to ensure there's water shovel, no immediate exposures. And then my thought was to turn it over to Jim. I don't know what your thinking was about where you wanted to go.
No more than you said. It's hot, it's very dry, and we're getting 20-mile-an-hour, 25-mile-an-hour winds in the afternoon. I just think it's a very dangerous time for, very risky time for fires. And Luanne, do you have any comment on this or any insight on this? You were at the fire department for a long time.
Well, I've been on the fringes, really, the radio operator, but
Yeah, but you know what's going on.
dispatcher or whatnot. But yeah, I'm just thinking that that would be an Anthony call, because we can make our restrictions more, but what our resolution says is that we go with what the county does. But a lot of times we're not quite, we're ahead of them because we're drier and hotter and so on. But that I think we should pass over to him.
Well, and actually it's passed more or less off to us by the emails today that we should do what we think is in the best interest of the town, and Chief Lott will support it. I know that in the past we've had discussions about the stage 1 and stage 2 and how restrictive we want to be. But what I can do is send to everybody the stage 1 and the stage 2, and we can talk about it next week. And then run it by the chief and assistant chief and make sure that they're good with it before we take a vote. But I think, I think we probably need to look at what those stages are. And in the meantime, it could be that the county comes up with something that we just tack onto and follow. But right now, there's some, they don't have it.
It seems like June is when the fire restrictions increase annually. So I suspect there's one coming from San Juan County soon. But it would be worth maybe calling that Tammy. Have this maybe if you're talking to Tammy, just find out what they're planning.
Yeah, when I was thinking of doing that today, but I just ran out of time to make a call. So I was going to
Mayor.
check with her and see what she knows.
All right.
I'll put that back on for next week and give everybody the choices of do nothing, do something, overkill, whatever, get
And
those.
we had flag warning yesterday or day before, which is high wind, and so I mean that's a national weather forecast in our
Red
area.
flag, yeah.
The red flag is wind and moisture.
And there have been a lot of warnings going out through the fire department and stuff is that with all the extra moisture, especially around the state, they're expecting more because you have that much more growth and then there's that much more that died. So it's what they always want to emphasize is to clear any weeds that you might have, anything that would carry fire to a house or carry it anywhere so that you have a little rim of protection. But
Good luck with that. There are just tons of dry weeds around. Really a lot of fuel here. So,
yeah, so
restriction or no restriction, I just, don't try to barbecue right now. I don't think it's a good idea with anything but gas, and even then, it's kind of scary.
Well, I'll get some options out for everyone to look at, and it looks like Jim Hook might have his hand up, and normally we don't take a comment now, but I'd really like to hear what somebody has to say on this. Jim, are you muted?
Yeah, well, I'm on right now as the chief emeritus. We have a lot of dry stuff, like 6 inches tall everywhere in town. Fires, don't do that. But you also have to be careful when you're mowing. I'm mowing myself. I'm mowing the airport tomorrow morning. You got to watch out. You hit a rock, you get a spark, you can make a fire by mowing. So,
Yeah.
So make sure you have fire protection outside no matter what you're doing. Sorry to bother you guys.
Well,
Bye.
that's
Thank
exactly, yeah, that's helpful. I think probably when I was looking at what we passed last year, the restrictions were included open fires, no fireworks, no cutting, welding, grinding, those kinds of things. So I'll put the options together again, and hopefully we get through a week without any problems. But everybody listening to this should just be alert and let people.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's time to do something today, we could do a be careful, burn something now. But if you want to wait till next week, I think that'll work, really.
Okay. Then moving on to number 10, I'm still in discussion with the community rebuild around the AmeriCorps and CCC team. I think our sticking point isn't the amount of work or the kind of work that we could have an AmeriCorps team do if they came in January, February, March. The restriction is we would need to provide housing, and community rebuilds is in the same situation we are. They don't have anywhere that they could house 8 to 12 people. So I'm talking with Ricky from Community Rebuilds tomorrow about whether this is even feasible for us to lay out as a council. With the change in leadership at St. Christopher's Mission, that's not possible to be able to use the mission or to team up. St. Christopher's isn't in a position to be able to team up and add anything. So that was kind of the biggest possibility. I haven't talked with anyone at Yes Tomorrow in detail, but I think once Ricky and I talk, if it looks like we've got the work and we've got a plan, if it's housing, I'll talk with Yes Tomorrow and see if there's any wiggle room there to be able to house people. But it really is it would be nice to have a team again, but we've got to be realistic about it. I don't think they want to be in a cockroach infested old school right now. So that's about the only option I could think of. So stay tuned on that. Any questions or thoughts? Okay, then number 11 kind of ties into it, a discussion of a grant writer through Vista and AmeriCorps. And actually, Linda had a conversation with a potential. So Linda, do you want to talk about that?
Yes, I spoke with the intern that is over at Esther Morrow, who is very enthusiastic and really would like to help us. So River and I talked. River actually doesn't have a grant background. River's starting classes up at USU in, I think, August 28th. River is only going to be the intern until, I believe, August 28th, when those classes start. And so definitely enthusiastic, but not, doesn't have the skills yet in order to do this.
Well, hopefully the future will work out for both of us.
Yeah.
Well, we'll certainly keep communications open with how we can get a grant writer. And like I say, after I talk with Ricky at Community Rebuilds tomorrow, it may be that I've got to get back on the phone with NCCC, and then I can get a little more detail about the Vista information. So thanks for doing that, Linda. Is there any other than the fact that Bluff Waterworks meets tomorrow night at 7 p.m. at the old library? Lou?
Yeah, I just want to briefly update that Bike Utah is still working with us for the plan for the highway trail. We're looking at the routes, some neighborhood byways through the west part and the east part, north and south of the highway. We had a good meeting today with Chris Hall was on it from UDOT, and talked about the grants that were coming up and which ones we qualify for and whatnot. So we also had a meeting over at the end of 6th where the river trail comes up and accesses town from that side, and walked around with the West Bluff neighbors a couple days ago. And anyway, that went well. We're all talking about the pluses and minuses of all those things, but just thought I'd let you know.
Okay, thanks. Any questions for Lou or any other thoughts? All right, any other?
Motion to adjourn.
It's 6:48.
I'll second that, Mayor.
All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, it's unanimous. I'm turning the recorder off and logging out.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
All right.
Thank you
Good
very
night.
much.
Bye-bye.
Good night.